Rinpoche invites us to enter into this teaching in the most noble disposition of the bodhicitta, the mind of the bodhisattva that thinks that we are here studying in order to bring each and every sentient being throughout the infinity of space to the state of utterly pure, totally perfect, and most precious enlightenment. And this morning in our Dhamma studies, we return to the text on Mahamudra, which is the pointing to the Dharmakaya. And in our studies of that text, we have reached the section on deep insight or vipassana. So, first we need to understand this term vipassana, deep insight, profound insight. And it's one, as we know, of a pair of terms that describe meditation. We have shamatha, the stable peace of mind, and vipassana, the deep insight, and we need to be able to distinguish the one from the other. In Tibetan, the term is laktong or lomtong, and this is two syllables. The first one, which is la, means exceptionally noble, and in another way it means supreme or the very best. Literally it means exceptionally noble or the very best. And this is obviously an adjective, and it's describing the next syllable, which is tong. Tong means to see, and here seeing means insight or understanding. So we can say it means the very finest understanding, most exceptional understanding. And just as when we've seen somebody, someone said, "Did you see that person?" Say, "Yes, I saw him or saw her." In the same way, once we've understood the mind, once we've recognized the mind, then we can say, "Yes, I understand the mind." Although here we're talking about the highest form of insight or understanding, people vary in their capacities. There are those of lesser, average, and exceptional capacity. So in the same way, their recognition of mind or their understanding of mind corresponds to their capacity and their faculties.
다 춘도 네 두나 다 가리지리라나 당황 아롱소 그 만통 바지 당황 아롱소 그 마히 바지 너는 제받은 법바지도 다 싸우다 너는 학고니 다 통수지라나 다 런통라나 용디 바리
because it is this method which enables all of those sorts of beings to see, if we take the term metaphorically, what they've not seen, or in real terms, to recognize what they've not recognized, to understand what they've not understood. It's for that reason that it is said to be the very finest, the exceptionally excellent or noble.
다때 가리다 오지라 고거와레라는 당화 마통 바지 추통지 그 니즈 우니 가린다 오지도 당화 당하로서가 몽치아가 더 통어 봐바래 다 맹어라 소발라 때니 다电通 공지 되라는 다 런통시 추통지 그 니즈 추통지 그런 거 연루도 가린다 오지나 대 요바도 하고지 되라는 되니
What is being understood, what is being seen by this deepest insight is the actual nature, or to be a bit more precise, the way things are, and the way that each and everything is probably the best we can do for a translation. It applies to what's called all dharmas, and it's to understand the way they really are. And this is something that most people don't know. They haven't recognized the nature of the phenomena that make up their lives. So it's to understand the properties of those things, the qualities they have, and the way they are, the way they exist.
다 대내서도 통하거나 되니 대화 말루바 통진 용화 동화 말루바 통진 매버시지 다 그런 연습 니성마 하거나 다 들리자고 지 말이 당황 알아서 너는 대두라서 받다만 용다 들리세디디 대통제 니서도 하마고 발라 되는 용화래 다 대통이 되니 달라는 영란시 昂的잖아 If
one can recognize the true way that things are and their true characteristics, what they have, so it's what they are and what they have, then this will become the source of every happiness, and that in itself can get rid of absolutely every suffering. Every happiness without exception comes out of that insight. Every suffering without exception can be removed by it. So first one needs to gain that insight into the nature of things, and then that first insight needs to be developed through practice.
다 가리라고 시시거리라나 당가로 쏘고 될라나 로종 시거리 되면 롱가 리 아버지부터 하고 고시 말이 가리에 되나나 추통지 니스 연루도 로종 공용 제목가 다 그런 때 롱가 효기도 다 레디오 바리라나 된지 리 아버지 요바 말이 되나 달라는 선노동 로종 야부시 거리
In order to gain insight into the true nature of things, then we need to train. We need to learn. It won't just happen easily, just like that. There definitely needs to be some training, and at first, part of that training means considering many things, thinking carefully about the nature of reality.
다 대답을 로종 신경가 몰라 선노동나 다 뭐 온보 용라 지어바리 다 된다고지 선노동나는 다 시와 문부 발라너 너는 초서 드바종 너는 냥란시 다 된디 세거지 말이 다 대답을이나 코롱 치투파 장지네 되니 주타지가 내서 연루 힘이 당동로 다 된디지 이거 말이 다 더라지나 코롱 미산다고 그래 다 리니고 말이 다 리지들아지나나 다 시와 몽보 발란도 추서 드바용 강년에시 도바체바도 또다 된디 공서 줘바리 다 된다고지나 다디가서라 된디 로종 자치보 시거바바리 치투바 장지는 주당지가 니서 또니 당또 리버 안데 다 된디 레하보 바리 달라나 더 코롱 미사리
Beings have different capacities. Some are very gifted, some are, the word is medium, you could say average if such a thing exists, and some are not so gifted at all. And in general, we can say that there are two circumstances. The first one is a person who, for many, many lives, has done what's called gathering the accumulations. They've led such good lives, life after life. They've developed wisdom and understanding. And coming into this life with that backlog, with that inheritance from past lives, then that person can sometimes very easily gain insight into the true nature of things. And this can be accomplished through just a few words from their Dharma teacher. But this is an exceptional case.
Tani ta de ta mai bi ta onbon jing do onbon member. Ta de cha ra jing na na uni lo yong ma ji na de tong ji ni su do de tong ji dong du de ki ba ma re ta ga ro so mong che ya da no nan nan da wo ji le de me be cho so de jong xie go xia mu bu ba la so ge zo ka li ka bo re mong che ya da 다 세제 담아봐 소유시원 담아봐라고 초디오리 다 된로이나 다 노나너 랑동 도바 제발라 될라요 로종야 보시게 거리
Those people are truly exceptions, and so for most people coming to this training, coming to these teachings, then if there isn't some study, if there isn't some training and some work, then they will not be able to gain the insight. This is the case for almost every practitioner, for most people. So then this is what we're going to be looking at, is the sort of training and study and progressive work that needs to be done in such a case.
Dini tatan lojong karinda woji chegwari lana yeke la tani lojong chewadawo 당가로 시샤 그리니라고 지 로종세나 다 얘기라 단이 로종세 그 말이 얘기 맨날 로종세 때문에 달라 로라네 달라다 디카리라 그 든지 손도 동거든 상동지 가서라 대 같이 보 말이 로종 그 가와라 세 그래지나 산라 단이 로종세 그 말이 너 가리지도 추통지 니에서 하고나 산농이 고아야 보지도 산농이 하고가 상동을 니 라야 랑통 라지다 제바다 파바다 순통거 말이지 생통거 말이 디 생통거도 되라 산농이 냐뇽세니 다 로종야 보시게 거 말이 되면 시 얘기라 되니 로종세 티고 봐 말이 더 가송이 띠로 나로비 노다 이게진다 그래 나로바 이거지도 시 로종 선노동거는 벤드다리 벤드다마시 자가르지 나렌달라소비 차고송이 밴드다 임바 드리지 히어 바리 드닉 지라 로종세 이거 로종 타스 마지리 옛나요 다 새노니 도노 로종 타마스 바라 때니 드니 라마라 때니 갈리피 모고 제거다 새노고 로종시 시급이 되긴찬다고 나로 소라 때요 바리 데인디라 딜 로종도 새노니 로종세 거 바리
The training which is necessary is not the same as and the learning that's necessary is not the same as most Buddhist learning. Most of Buddhist learning is covered by what is called the 5 disciplines or the 5 Buddhist sciences. And when we study those in the colleges and in other circumstances, then this involves working with ideas, concepts, studying books, texts, and so on, and thinking. And as far as training in Mahamudra is concerned, in deep insight is concerned, then that is not really very important at all. It's not needed. The training and the study is the study of mind itself. And this is not an intellectual or an analytical study of mind. It is a direct experience of the mind, within the mind, by the mind. It's an experience, it's the mind's experience of itself. It's the mind's awareness of itself, which gradually helps the mind to know and understand itself. And this is very, very different from thinking about things and understanding the mind through notions, through ideas and external study. We can see this, as Rinpoche already mentioned in a previous talk, so vividly with the case of great Pandita Naropa. He was one of the, what's called the gate masters, that is the 4 greatest scholars in the University of Nalanda, which was the finest, most illustrious Buddhist university, a person of tremendous learning, understanding and prowess. But when it came to his turn to gain this deep insight under his teacher, then even though he had all of that knowledge, he still had to start from the beginning in this process of learning to train the mind to see and know itself directly, beyond any sort of ideas or concepts, and to gain more and more direct, vivid experience.
Sen machu pa kyu seje to teni sen tura re seje na ba to hoya thama je chi pa gang je gale re la je ta chi teni mong bo yo ba re chi sa bo yin ba re yan na yong ma ro so le tong bo pa la sa bo ma re le tong bo pa nga rong so no to na je ra ya bo ma re ten di 가리리 라나 얘나는 로자 쳔비고 로센지 로중 버지라는 사요나 콜라 팬도 요 말이 콜라 사바 말이 시작이 시나 로자 쳔부 로센 빼야 버리디 얘나요 버글라 고 희영요 봐 말이 나롱소 류도 못 쳐버리디 얘나요 생기 디도니 샤제 쳔부 건캔라 생은 버근다고 쳐디요 말이 다다 로중야 보요 키요 봐 말이 되니나 샘 뻐간다고라 되니 셔제 첨부 뚜라도 마주바도 타마지 히바 로세 챔비고 라고지 라나 티 깔리카보 요다치보 펜바미바 되니 노바치본다고 요바레 가론 거 텐디
In Mahamudra, there are some very profound and vivid, specialized terms which are used. Terms like without contrivance, free from conceptual complication, the ordinary awareness, and so on and so forth, and many very specialized terms. These words have very clear meanings in themselves, but for beginners the meaning is not clear at all, and on the contrary they can be a hindrance more than a help. And Rinpoche gives the example of a normal learning process in life and a university. In university studies you'll find specialized terminology, it has very precise meaning, but a young child going to university, hearing those terms, will either make nothing of them or will understand them wrongly. There's no way that a young child starting its education can understand what those terms really mean. There needs to be a whole growing up, a learning of language, a development of ideas, and at the end, after all of that training, when they come themselves to university studies, then those terms should make some sense. So, like this, when we start out in this very real, unfakeable work of letting the mind recognize itself, then all of those terms, such as beyond conceptual fabrication, without effort, let the mind rest in the ordinary state, and so on, not only do we not understand what they really mean, we misunderstand them, and because of that, they can actually be injurious to the practice. They can harm the practice because of the wrong ideas that we carry into our practice on their account.
Ta pena ngaronso chaji chembo gongkein mungcha la hiyo pare. Ta machupa shegware si katswa pajen ka la hiyo pare. Ta choro karizo gongkyo la na. Ta machupa yogale la. Ta no to don dujo hle wona o ta ngan di mon du a se ta pa won pon do le wa re. Te machupa chwa mon du a. Ta de po do pa yong yu gu du a. Ya po ji tsu liang gu du a. Teni yong machupa 카글라지 동 도미 받쳐서 당아 뚜라 강히요 라바리 야 다게동 도미 나자 라소바 노동다만다 몸보시 오마리 당아 강야 보면 뒤야 라고래 용 라라 뚜라 임바 라라 뚜라 많이 받아고 쳐르도 용 강히면 뒤야 다 드니 레고디라 카마도 동 우니 강야 보 쳐히요 바마리 강 ronsa ka gon ka dima tang gon hiwa pa mari.
For instance, most of us would either, or many of us would say, or if asked, are you practicing Mahamudra? We say, yeah, I'm practicing Mahamudra. Or sometimes we go and we sit down in the shrine room or at home and we practice Mahamudra in inverted commas. And if we look at what's actually going on when we do that, what we're actually practicing, then, for instance, Mahamudra is said to be, for instance, uncontrived, free from all conceptual complication. So we sit in the state free from all conceptual complication. And then when thoughts come up, we feel this is bad. We lost the meditation. It's not a good meditation. When the mind's very, very smooth, we think, oh, that's nice. Well, if there's any of that sort of reaction to meditation, there's no way we can say we're practicing Mahamudra beyond any conceptual complication, because the very feelings of good and bad, this is how meditation ought to be, this is how it didn't ought to be, is conceptual fabrication. It's the very nature of it. And the same when we are sitting in an uncontrived state, Mahamudra, uncontrived Mahamudra, as soon as a feeling of pride comes along, or jealousy, or any of those things, passion, then we feel that we lost some sacred state. We feel our mind has gone back down into samsara, or however it is, we don't feel that we're still meditating. And we are not beyond the complication, the judging, and so on. So all of these ideas, what are they? They're not real things we practice. They are words in our mind, they are words in our mouths that we've come to be familiar with, but they don't correspond to a practice reality.
Yo malala karela gonlana nga soje chambo gon hi pe gon ya yo nga la gon hi mu gari zo gon gari pe yo da do nga la gon hi de pe gon hi mu ki de won la kan du ma chare nga ro khen cha ta ya du pe na no soje chambo se je ta wa thong je gan tha du jabo ta bre jabo ta ba gon hi de ta gon khon du mun du do 다 라광지들 요번다고 이래들이 땅아 요포시에 그 가리시에 그리 라진다고 괜찮아 나로 그래요. 네, 다 다잘라 손노도나 나 하고 온데 고 저제 전부 건 힘이 방도 나 하고 온데 고로 같이 버거 저제 전부 건 힘이 라지마도 당문이 건 힘이 방나로 하고 온데 저제 전부 야포지 건 힘나 라건 건절라 손바 온다 미바리 가르리라나 슈통책 니스 히사디디 니스 마음 빠지 다 건도 가르시 배 괜찮다고 좋아그래 되다 친가와 체계도 되어 버리더라.
Or for instance, there might be somebody who says, who thinks or says, oh, I'm practicing Mahamudra. I don't do any of these deity practices, visualizations. That's a bit weird. That's strange. And no, I don't need any of that. I'm doing Mahamudra. And so anyone who thinks like that, by the very fact of thinking or saying like that, obviously hasn't understood Mahamudra at all. Because for those who practice or understand Mahamudra, then any of these deity meditations becomes part of it, becomes a very, very useful support for the practice, something which helps it greatly. And once one knows Mahamudra, one knows the nature of things, the nature of mind, and then by understanding how mind is, one understands implicitly the very purpose and benefit of those what we call deity practices, because of the very way they embody the mind. So there could never be that contradiction, that conflict between Mahamudra and deity practice.
다 노르츠디나 땅아로서 검지디 되라나 생하고 거바리 다 생하고와 시발라 생라 손노동 거바리 생가리라고 지디 달라다거든 마도 생 가지로 노동 초마저 땅아 마주바 건리 대공 드리조 데데나 코로 현인라고 초로지 마도 데나 도메도 비타와 제바르제 롱동나 로이 투사치 메바리 로 자라 고나용 코케니레 로 동라 고나용 케니레 다 딘리시나 펜투 자체 메바리 데이는 당아론소 가체휴 산라 손노지동 산라 자더지지 산라 히차지지 도시지시나 데니 니마지라 롱동도 하고이 뒤소지 티오나 히마 데니 티오나 베 당요바지 데니 강야보지 쳐고 말해 더 마임바 다치질라 히니케도 간디나 이제 보시라 메리 가정이 라이야 말어서 니카를 팬토지 마도 히닝 다리고 팬토지 말해 다도도 니카 카통하라 팬토바도 랑통도 요가 바래 송지도 저바토바 카통하고 랑통라 때니 대반 타도 저반 타도 토고 바래 니마 히니라 때요 바래 데인들라 말어서 다 생공용 머렘바 강제바 다바도 노도 공용 먼저바 강제바동 땅아 마주바 여결이 생아로서 니마질라다고 니라고 세질라용도 강디나 야 지홍지메레 강라 시 타홍지메레 송지 도지용 말에 다 된디이나 말어서 생라 고아지 얼었다 생라 히치시 도시시나 드니 문이 니마질라 랑통도 공초 드니 강시잖아 드니 마주바다 하고 말에 드니 뚜라다 하고 말에 드니 타마지키바다 하고 말에 드니 땅인데 강레 인데 강레 문디 손지기 노토다자 드디 강데 제니 카트와 야보지 하고 거든 드니 인디 각 비침버리도 저로서 강제케이나 다잘라 손노 케자지 데마다오지 요나 저로서 손노 야보지 동거든 세노니 강제거든 드니 데마다오 메나 바이거이라 정리 받지거든.
So, therefore, we need to understand the mind. Now, the way this is accomplished is by examining the mind. It's also by thinking about it, but not thinking about it with discursively, intellectually, but it does require some subtle thought, questioning, and investigation. Without that, there'll be no progress. If one just carries on the shamatha, the peaceful, calm, settled experience, hoping that that will somehow blossom into deep insight, it won't happen. You can do that for a year, 2 years, 100 years, 1,000 years. You'll still be sitting there in peaceful stability, and the insight won't come. If in your shamatha you're trying to edge your way into a state where there are no more thoughts, you're trying to get out of the thoughts and find some space where you're beyond all of the complication of thoughts, you'll never wriggle into that space. It will never come by itself by practicing shamatha. There needs absolutely to be this process of the mind examining itself, asking itself very, very subtle questions about how it is, pursuing those questions and so on. And then the clarity will emerge. Through that very precise process of questioning, which is in this practice, then one day the penny drops. One day, all of a sudden, it's clear. It's clear. And it explains so much. But if one doesn't do that process of examination and questioning in a very precise way, then just carries on with the shamatha, there will never be ultimate benefit. As was explained yesterday, shamatha is only a provisional benefit. It's a temporary benefit. It will never bring Buddhahood. What brings Buddhahood is insight. And what brings insight is this process of examination. When that insight does come, then at that time, the terms such as beyond conceptual complication, without fabrication, the natural mind, will all suddenly make sense as they're meant to make sense. They'll have their true meaning that wasn't understood before. Many, many things will be understood all at once and be made clear without any doubt on account of the insight that comes one day as a result of all of that examination. Rinpoche said this is a very, very important point to understand. Please think about it. If you agree with it, then apply its meaning. If you don't agree with it, well then just leave it.
Pena naroso jitempa machira dropochena. Tompo mo yapochi ndu mandu ngaro toshi segundu ademe doni dropoche mara mo yapochina ko mo yapochi ndu mo yapochi mandu se tompo toshi se. Tene mo yapochi yona nga dropoche. Tene mo yapochi mena dropomeche. Ta tene sera. 나라도 shaje chembo gandu konyo toshi sema gapa ta yogali se tene le labochi kawai wore. Tene mo sabare. Jitempe neka ji dropoche ganayo tompo toshi ngwandon ro se gabare. shaje chembo neka deva tatu deva. 시와 몸부바의 대반주의 송지지 공부 토지 문의들이 달 다시 공용시에 먹어봐 대 동원이 레라보지 때는 무슨 바나 그래 되나 당하로서 너는 다시 시에도
We actually do need to do that. We do need to think about it before we get into it. In the everyday world, if we're going to befriend somebody, if we're going to get involved deeply with somebody, then I just translate it, I'm not sure if it applies here, but anyway, then we don't just rush into it, we don't just do it, we examine very carefully the person, who they are, their qualities, and so on and so forth. And then, once we're sure that, yes, that's a reliable person, that's a good person, that's a really good person to be with and be my friend, then, after that, then we befriend them. So, in that way, Mahamudra is a very serious undertaking, and we shouldn't just wander into it, sort of, oh yeah, Mahamudra, okay, do that, and then take it on. We need to look into these points about what it requires, what it involves, and then on that basis to get into it. Actually, if one does get into it, then it becomes the finest of friends because it brings tremendous happiness, tremendous freedom, not just in this life but in all future lives. It's the very seed of enlightenment. That's true. But because it is such a serious undertaking, then it shouldn't be entered into lightly or without reflection.
Yeah. Ta te tabala, ta tosi sezi, tela, ta karitira uchi segawari lana no. Tosi seto nga yobari. Ta tsuduyo na. Ta tosi seto nga ta kechachi su to na. Yapuchi ti na. Zondu yapuchi yo, tepa yapuchi yo na. Teni, muni langtong kako wari. Tosi seto nga.
There are, if we come down to what precisely that means, now we have to let the mind discover itself or examine itself. There will be 5 areas of examination. And if somebody can carry through those 5 areas of examination with the 2 qualities of diligence and trust, faith, then that's all it needs, or that's what it needs for this work of mind understanding itself to be accomplished.
Ta tosi seto nga tongbo. Karidina ni tu ni tawari. Se ni jetala tosi sejiri tongbo.
The first one is to examine the mind when it is stilled. Examining stillness.
Sila pe le labore ni tu ni ta la yo de tela na si ni se ji de ma ndu. De de pe ma ndu. De lo la la na pe to ma ndu. De na na ma ro go san la ta ni tu ni ta du ni de ji san de ka rin da wo ji zo. Ha ko ga bare de me si ke de ni tu ni ta la yo de le labo ji cho de bare. Ni na yo san no ni le labo ma re. De na na san ga di tu ni tu san Kirindu tagabare to.
They talk some deep.
Ni do sen ni ba de. Oh ya karinda wo ji to mo ta du.
The words are very, very simple. Examining the still mind, examining stillness, examining the mind at peace. It sounds easy. But actually when it comes to what it involves, then it's not easy at all. For the still mind to really come to know itself, how it is, and so on, in all of the various aspects that it will be examined, the actual work itself that the mind has to do to come to know itself is very fine and difficult. The words are easy, the work is not.
Ta ni tu ni ta tong ge song no tong tong de nan da ni tu ni lo jong xie tong de ta ta la ba yi de chuo rong so ge xie la ya bu xiu de ni gong bi ga se la de song no tong tong de ya bu gong de nan da ta la ga ri zo song no tong chuo rong so gong ji bi ga se la ya bu ta ge ni de me ta ta hong ji ci de zhe ge song no tong tong de ya bu ji ha ma go na lo jong ya bu ji ma tong na Tenyo 생각 뒤도 대조지 갈리카보 요바레 데나 본보다 시타타 손노 동소 가리다 오지 손노 동거들이 야포지 하고나 데니 파송니 손노지 동로조지 세나 데니 팬도 제보 요지레 데나 시타타 동보 히라 야포지 혀 다데가슬라 조로스 가리가리조 따그디 마마라지 조로스 야포지 다시시그디.
So Rinpoche will explain to us how to do that. But the instructions that he gives, we should heed very, very carefully. We should examine them, we should learn them so that they're very clear in our minds. They're precise and they're clear, because then when we actually come to meditate, which he'd like us to do, then when we sit and we meditate, we are very clear about what we are supposed to be doing. It's not some vague thing where we're sitting in some fuzzy understanding of the mind. The instructions are very precise, they're quite fine, and that finesse has to be applied in the practice itself. So please listen carefully or note it carefully, and afterwards spend the time to understand it carefully and clearly.
다 동보 가리가리리디나 가송아로서 희니 고마라 다 희니 공디디라 다 공케 센니 바지 다 희니 라나나 노토 몬초바 센다 찌지 파 니제저 가송아로서 동보 공자 바리 드게 바리 다 센니 되지 나로 동보 하고 가 바리 디 센니지다 센니지다 공디디라나 동보 나로서 다지 라마라 소반데 드니나 라마도 투여롱냐라세 드니 나도 갈리 프로마제바 나도 드티데 드지 니죠 현인다고 지세 동보 다 현인다고 지세 고디데라 다 나도 먼초바 나도 다 니와라 다 나도 누구와라 드니 누군지 센데라 딱근다 코 가리라고 지도세 동보달라는 딱근도 되면 대 누군지 센다 광자 되되나 패만도 저기 고로 현이 쳐로 와야 되면 니에서 돈 하고 되기고 봐 말이 되나 디센다 가리라고 진도 달라 야보 또시지 도고도
In the previous teachings, we learned the instructions and the advice about shamatha, settling the mind. And this is our starting point for the practice. So the mind of shamatha has the quality of being focused, it's one-pointed, and it has the quality of being settled, that is, it is quiet and peaceful. And so first we need to establish that state. This means that we sit down, we do our few prayers that we do to start the session, and in particular prayers of devotion to the Guru and the lineage, and then we let the Guru, the lineage dissolve into us, however we do that, and then we practice shamatha. Through the practice of shamatha, the mind settles. That means we reach a state where the mind is calm, quiet, and focused. What we do occurs now within that state of calm. The mind needs very quietly to start to examine itself. As Rinpoche said, if we just leave the calm, nothing will happen. So there needs to be an examination, an investigation, without disturbing that peaceful focus. So it needs to be quite subtle. And while the mind is so peacefully settled, then that same mind that's peacefully settled looks at itself, or is aware of itself, to find what is this settled mind? What is this settled mind like?
딱히 생 요바도 니데지도 다 요바지래서 매바지래 손도 동도 요바지나 딱 가리라 이존도 기 무본라원도 무본 매반라고 지래 오메나 가도라고 체지래 가도 매반라고 지래 연라고 체지래서 이 매반라고 체지래 요바지나 가리라존도 코로나 딱도 생각도 로주 제거하려 되면 가게지 배송만도 생각도 운이디 요바지나 요동 가리라고 줘요 야부시 딱도
As the mind is peaceful and settled, and it then starts to be aware of itself or to examine itself, then the first thing is, does it exist or not? That is there something or nothing? if, as this is actually happening, vividly happening, the peacefulness, then if it feels like the mind which is peaceful exists, it feels like there's something there, then what is there? Is it substantial, tangible, or not? If it feels like there is something there, a mind there which is peaceful, does it have a color or not? This mind which is peaceful and focused, does it have a shape or not? And this should be done not at all discursively, not at all, you're not sitting there thinking about the mind. It's in the actual presence of the moment. If it feels like there is a mind, then how is it? And this needs to come directly, the answer needs to come directly from the experience.
야, 다 지롱 속어 당어 쇼제체 몸부 고요 바래. 주지 몸부 희요 바래. 전지래 생도 요바 말에 매바래 전지래. 다젠 어디나 생도 요 말에 전지래. 매나 다 니대지 생도 가래래. 매바이나 니 용지 생지 간이래 우리. 니 용지 생들 다 상는 동문데. 되나 매바이마 더 쳐면도야. 더는 니 인도 생요라. 온하고 면도야. 말아서 건 힘은데야. 매바리 로그제 이거나 오 노르사송. 매바리 면데 니 되긴데야. 다니 되지 생다 가리라고 긴데. 달라다고.
Now, doubtless, many of us have received many Mahamudra teachings. We've read the books, we've read the texts, and we know what it says in the text. Mind does not exist. We've probably all seen that somewhere or another. So, but carrying that knowledge into this meditation, you'll find is not useful. Because when you sit there, and if you find you're trying to find the mind, colour and so on, and you're remembering that you think you already know the answer because you got it from the book, you know the answer to the question, the test, mind does not exist, then simply ask yourself the question, then what's having this experience? If there's nothing at all that exists, what's peaceful? If there's nothing at all, there'd be no peace, there'd be no focus, there'd be none of the qualities of shamatha. So then you think, oh, got that wrong. There is something here. There is the shamatha experience. Otherwise there'd be absolutely zero experience, nothing at all. So then, if you're there and there's the experience of peaceful one-pointedness and an awareness of that, then if it's not non-existence, then you have to examine whatever is there. As Rinpoche said, well, where is it? Does it have a colour? Does it have a shape? And so on and so forth.
몽치아가 다 강제히요 라드. 강제히요 라나 니 요지리 나 이친두. 샤자 첨보 강히요 라고니 데라 나 대조지天上사고도. 샤자 첨보 강히요 라지디 레라보치 미야 나 된디. 문이 소제 참고 강시 들리 라보지 문도 강시지만 달래하고나 같이 또 대상다고 사사고도 가리다운데 강 문이 강 택이오지래 문이 강 택이오지 말에다 같이 배 대상다고 사고도 소제 참고 강이 이렇게 빼먹는데 대연아요 가 대상 배 치문도 문이 니 강시기오지래 강시지 말에 가리라 hin지래 나배 대상도
그렇지랑
말이 연발라 연발라 나 감제히 올라도 다 감제히 올라나 고케니 고한한딘도 가리나 고지 몸인데 고 인지리 야부 인지리 저 관제 중이 문이 담바 인지리 같은데 anga sacha chembo ganghi zoba chembo ganghi molala glaunde titunga muni di ganghi hiyo dire muni hiji mare kare injire so ngape tenso chibol he gondi muni le gondi tinizile labochi mare ndi namata kari di gangte da karenda zo toyo Muni Kichachere, yo, Nape, Tensandra was Sandu.
So, most of us here have done some meditation, various types of meditation, and of course that's very, very good. Meditation's such a helpful thing. But then there are quite a few people who are, how would you say, would say that they are practicing Mahamudra, or they'd say they are practicing Mahasandhi, Dzogchen. And this is really questionable. Rinpoche really has some doubts, because then you'd wonder, well, who's teaching, and what exactly are they teaching, and what are the people doing? And the reason for these doubts is simply because Mahamudra is so difficult. It is so subtle. It is so complicated. It requires so much. It's not an easy thing at all. Very, very hard and difficult to acquire. So it will be natural to be doubtful when so many people seem to be practicing it so easily and readily.
Pena Naruto, San Robo, the Yajato, Maju by God, that Trasajida, Katma Yotari, Yota Yapuri, they must shut it some marita. Then, Pena TGP thing and some that Trasajida young Yapo do job, Momo Yobari. Pena no Basonji here on the Tirana, retreat here, Jobari. Retreat, Zume comes, said Yori like Yobari. Tis Zume Continua, Kaba Mombu Padela. Things and chicken on need to raise Lupo Yomarese, Tenis Kikobare. Tendi into Dilla, Ronsa sent me Pachido, Ronsa tea, thing in the Royoti Tilana. Piano Chero Opamari, Nikamato. Piano, Zume Kanina, Kabamo Parenti, Tini thing in the Ledoni, Yaval Masi, Tendi on Yobari, Yerimbo Piano Opamari. Ronsa thing in the Royoti, Ronsa, San Lobo, Dawoga, then he said, Jigo. Nikamado, Tadi shot a chamber of the detail of Mari.
And the reason for some of these doubts is that, well, in the terms that we have, or the terminology, it says, Mahamudra, the mind needs to be relaxed, it needs to be uncontrived, which means that there's no artificial effort being applied. And there are many people who can meditate in a state which is very relaxed, it is very uncontrived, there's not artifice and effort, but it's not Mahamudra. Although those two things are qualities of Mahamudra, just because you're there relaxed and without effort, that isn't Mahamudra, and it's very different. It's very different. There are many sorts of absorption of the mind, of meditation. If we look at the 6 realms of sentient beings, then one of the classes of the Deva realm is called the formless realm, and in there, beings are reborn there, but they don't have a body. It's a rebirth where your mind is in meditation. It's in deep samadhi, absorption, and that can go on for many cosmic eons. It's very, very long-lasting. It is calm, totally relaxed. There is no contrivance whatsoever. There's no effort. There's no movement of the mind. Not only is there no effort, there's not even any movement of the mind. It's not Mahamudra. It's a worldly state of meditation. It's relaxed, it's uncontrived, but it's not Mahamudra. And in fact, in those states, after many cosmic eons of absorption, in that calm, unmoving state, then when that karma's run out, they pick up on their next karma, which is very often rebirth in the hell realms. So we need to be very clear about how difficult, how subtle Mahamudra is.
Donana sent Nipala Tagaring at Talare Guni. Ta Nipada Yoparengaso, Meparenga Nitagavari Lare, Mepaina, Mepayiton, Carizo Meparendu, 요바이나 가리존이 요바래. 다가바래 니 라우시오라. 다 너나 요바이나라 메바이나라 롱고 다 너니 랭거선 희공지지 너나는 생지 요지대 디니바다 다 간이 해고도 다 니바지 어디디라나 기요공도디라 너나 희공지 요도 가시지니기 요거지라 해공지인지라 요면나 히레 그 니바데 진짜 메바지렌두 가 세지라 그 니도문다고 테테 메나나 까까라 니 까까라 니바지나 다티 니도지 생하다 진리조 니공도 진리조 레공도 니지 생하다 대인들이라나 니바가 생하다 가리조 레 가리조 니공도 대야보지 갖고 근데
So, to come back to the point of the meditation, then there is a need for the mind, that settled mind, that peaceful mind, to examine itself skillfully. As Rinpoche explained before, the two main questions are, does it exist or not? Not an intellectual question, but on the spot, as that mind examines itself, it needs to be aware, is this exist? Does this exist? Is it existing? Or is this non-existence? If it feels like non-existence, then that needs to be investigated. Exactly what is it as non-existence? Is it a total zero, total nothing? We don't just sit in an assumption of non-existence. If it really feels like non-existence, then that non-existence needs to be very precisely known. Is it total nothing at all, or is it a non-existence like this or like that? We need to be clear about it as non-existence. If it feels like it is something, it exists, then we have to investigate. Well, this isness that feels like it's here just now, how is it? Where is it? Does it have a dimension, a shape, a location? We need to find out exactly what this feeling of it is just now actually means. And then also there's another question. Where did it come from? Not an intellectual question, we're not sitting there thinking about it, but as it is there, where did this moment come from? Where did this come from? How did this happen? If it didn't come from somewhere, it means it's a timeless, continuous, unbroken state. It's always been there. And if it's not, if this state of present moment awareness of the calm, focused mind, which is the basis for all of this calm focus, where did it come from? Out of what did it come? How did it arise? And the next moment, how did this arise? So these questions need to be asked.
야, 다 니바의 공사, 제 초난다, 제 마쇼난다, 다 자지, 다 노사라 따그니, 다 니바의 대대나 다 노사라 따그문디, 니반 두지마 대대오나, 제시라 니바의 대대오나, 따그문디, 다 마데나, 니바의 로소나 메소나, 코카 준루디 기다그니, 다 기자지 때 저그니, 콘 로사다 갖고 오그니, 디만 로사 하마거나. 니바 두저인지 하고 뭐니바 더 두저인 바 하고 뭐디가 로사 가와이 하마오나 고름 미에서나 야보이나지 야보면에 가리라 고 야보지 로사 하고서나 두저인지 하고 그래 야보면 바다 하고 그래 야보인 바다 하고 말해 대인들아 고름 로 니바데 메서나요 디 메로지다 가와지 메로디 야보진 것들거든.
Having let the mind become aware of where it's coming from or how it's emerging in the moment, then one also needs to see where it goes, how it disappears, how that moment is lost. If we don't understand how it comes, what it comes out of, where did that come from? Where's that gone? On the spot, then we can't understand its abiding. The coming and the going is part of the process of understanding what it is as it's there. How this came out of something. What's that? Where's that gone? Where's this come from? What's that? Where's that gone? Needs to be understood on the spot. The coming and the going help us understand the being of the mind.
Tati. Oh, please. 너나 말어서 감지도 생각 거 말이 생각 거나 생마히나 강하고 좀 말어리래 되니 생히 거 말이 되니나 생히 바 가르시 거리지나 생라 로조 시 거라 되면 이 생 가르지 기 하고 뭐야 되니라나 우주더라 생 로조 시 도래 생 상노 동도래.
So those sort of questions, that sort of on the spot investigation is what we need to know about the mind. As was said at the beginning, the mind needs to come to know itself. This is the study that we are doing. This on-the-spot investigation is the study of mind that will help it come to know itself.
다 노르투디나 가rel라tilana sen ni deje sen de 요바 레송 네바리 요메 니가 많이 빠지리 따따로 그래 터지나 로로로 터지죠 로로로 손도 동죠 요바 연바 초로 터지나요 저런 거 터죠 요바레 문디 네바레디 그때나 저런 거 터지죠도 또 니가 레문디 되나 저런 거 터가리지나 저런 롱레 뒤터 깨지 그 산데 다 가르치게 걸라나 간이 레고도 뭐사도 히터근도 더니 로사도 갖고 근데 메소나 노나다 산다월라 그지 어르가 다 가르치나 니 비센데 요바 메바 가르레 그 가르 터초나 저런 거 터치초 더니 다디 니 비센데 간이 레고도 가반로도 손안 로도 찌리존 로도 레나 오나 가리조 레고도 베나 나로서 니 콤바노라 하고나라 뭐지 레고나 고고노니야 레고도 까타노니야 레고도 되는다고 기 세야데 니 바디 기 온거도 니 바디 엄마 니 바디 레고도 만다 바디 쳐오마라 디 가니 찌리조 레고도 다 파안로다 용 고니 파준로서 까타니 파준로서 가린다고서 파메노도 저차라 또시 맞이나 니 생각고니 거리를 갖고 오고 봐 말이 또시 시작도
that's so one of the main questions is this mind which is now settled in peaceful concentration, does it exist as something or not? In that moment, is there something or is there nothing? First, that to establish. So either there's something and we investigate it, or there's nothing and that nothingness is to be investigated. Or there might be a feeling of, well, it neither really exists nor doesn't exist. There might be some combination of those two things. And if that's the feeling, then that also needs to be investigated. Is it possible that the mind can in one way exist and in another way not exist? Not to think about it, but on the spot, is that possible? It needs to be investigated. So this question of existence or non-existence is one main one. And then another one is, so existence then needs to be explored if that's what it feels like it exists. Non-existence needs to be explored if it feels like there isn't anything there at all. And then this question of that moment of peacefulness, where does it come from? How does it come? Where does it go to? How does it go? Needs to be followed. For instance, if somebody came into this temple, then you'd see, oh, they're coming in through that door, or they're coming in through this door, or they're coming in through the trap door, or through the ceiling, or whatever it is. You'd know, you'd see them coming in, how they came in, and then when they go, oh yeah, they've gone that way. So in this way, that peacefulness of mind, how did that come? Where did it come? Where's it gone now? That one? How did it go? Needs to be understood on the spot.
다 대다바가 산 민두지다 루 샤란두 루가 노란두 다 근데 되네요. 루가 샤라요나 가린다우조 샤란두 루가 노라요나 노라 가린다우조 고데디두 된디도 좀 동두.
Also, as one's investigating that still mind, is it something that is in your body? Or is it something that's external to the body? This is another thing to investigate.
아니, 루가 샤라용메, 노라용메, 다 메반다고 지이나? 메동도 가린다고 좀 메. 베나 내라나 떠면도야. 응서라 떠면도야. 뭐야? 던다고 지 고롱 메나 메동이 나라 떠메바다고 세 메반다고 지 던리다고 지 때니. 레딘디 용메나 지 요인디 요바다지 사싱인다고 지도 다 가린다고 지도 뭐야 달라야 보다거든.
If it feels like it's neither in the body or external to the body, neither of those, then
다 베나는 샘 메반다고 이나 메동도 가린다고 베나 가로 송소라 또메 문두야 던다고 지 때니 메바지 드리라고 지ren디 다 더용 지 대소지 마서반다고 지 요산두야 지요 진두 라고 되나 이 요저가 생한지 사생해라고 가린다고 진두.
If it doesn't feel like it's in the body or outside of the body, or there's nowhere else apart from those two places, either inside the body or outside the body, if it feels like it's nowhere at all, not existent, then that needs to be examined. If after that investigation, is this in the body? Is this peacefulness that I'm experiencing in the body? Is this peacefulness outside the body? If it doesn't feel like either, then is it like, for instance, from just saying on the table in front of him, there's no tiger. There's a definite absence of tiger on the table in front of him. Then like that, nothing there at all, a total absence of something. There's definitely no tiger there. So like that, definitely nothing there. Is this mind, which is peaceful, which is neither inside the body or outside the body, if that's the conclusion, is it a total absence? Like an absence of something.
No, that's not anything. Tilama Japatera, pay Gonkabuchi Tragedy, pay Kalikabuchi, this on no payment. Do not cherry nose into the Machamandu, the Tana Hiramare, the Unijena, the Mare, Carredina, San Carinda Woji Hako, Carinda Woji Siahio, Cariza Mundo Hio, Tayapochicona, Dunga Sang Tito Yokiobare, Dunga non dure. Tani Muni Dunga walk on the dinner was Dunga than the knees of Leon Hio, Dunga than the knees of Pa, make he also pay no Hichayapochiconduare. Then you tell Dunga Sonra the Rigonde, Dunga Caton, then you may take it. The Maiba, Ronsa Dunga Pa, Goni, Godinana, Cali Cardosi, the Macali Chundu Hobamari. Tongaro Dunga Mepacho take you over it. Carretina. Usuri Sangatido Dungayon, Sangatido Hobare, Diayon Sangatido Yobare. Ganga Catomata, Sangatido Hobare. Chegundia. Then Chegundia, Tari, on the Dizo Hitchas guitar on the Tilana. Sangan Roton near the Yapuji de Consona. Then Dunga Malu Batetonji on Roton the Yabuchako Marino. Then near the Yapuchakona, then he laid about it gone. Then he calling Uni, Takuro Machi by Godionanda, to the Godionanda, Takresi Godida. You want to Kotare, then he got the Magoka go when you made it, come here, Tata. Coron Sakari Hakumen, the Carisi Gongo, Gonji Jamudi. Then Dina, Choroso, Lama Japala, Kalik Kawaji Traging a Mare. Muni, Choroso, Sono Yapujitona, Pe Marogutina, Peton Sabo, Pe Peduchebo. Gola Yaji Homa. Then you pare, Choroso, Sanas on the tongue, do them. That territory, the Richic Pedal to Comundi, the Sankatidun Quago, Redime, Kakatidun Mari, Yakadra with Tidun Mari, Dina, Pasuni, Gonya Pujo, Sankatidun Yapuchis on the tongue.
Now, by this stage, you may be thinking, well, this thinness-challenged Lama in front of us, if we put it politely, or as he put it himself, this fat Lama in front of you is giving you a lot of hassle and giving you a lot of suffering and so many things to think about. Of course, you've got to look into the mind. Is it this? Is it that? Is it doing this? Did it come from here? Did it go to there? And then is it that colour? Is it that shape? It's so much work. And you might wonder about it. But in fact, if we think about it, then all of our suffering, all of our happiness too, what is it? Where does it happen? In the mind. It's the mind that's happy. It's the mind that suffers. Nothing else. And when we know that mind from the inside, where did it come from? What exactly is it? Then when the mind is suffering, then we can look at that suffering. What is this? Where did that come from? What exactly is it? What is its nature, its strength? As we've discovered by learning what the mind is, then this is the key to really understanding all of our mind's suffering, its anguish, all of its joy and happiness too. It all becomes crystal clear because we understand the mind, which is the doer and the actor of all of those different things. And it really is the way to liberation, freedom from the sufferings. It's the way to happiness because we get to the very heart of it. And without that, then any other way of dealing with suffering, of working with happiness, of trying to suppress suffering, of trying to change it, to modify it, to transform it, and of trying to make happiness in any other way, is much, much, much less efficient. And also this process of understanding the mind is a wonderful nurturer, it's not the best term, but the only one I can find, for all of our meditation. When one knows the mind from the inside like this, then that enhances so many other aspects of meditation. So therefore, this thinness challenge Lama is maybe not giving us a lot of hassle, but maybe giving us something that is of really so much benefit, of so much use, and that will really be a help to us in many ways.
다 가서 가로서 현이 가운데 되라는 세 니바시 다 니바지 되는다 당하로 관계니 때에서 센드루세고나 니고지 센터 코론 가린 동보다 진리로 진도 야보지도 하고지 더 지쳐서 드니 띠니에 이제 센터 간이래서 배나 멋이 해고나 배나 상인인데 뭐 멋이 해고나요 샤로는 좀 간이래서 바로 하고 따라 배된다고지 니 대지 생다 간이래 더 니쳐서 더니 니 대지 생다 가라서 간로서 파 선다고 진도야 다 뜻상아야 보지 다도 너 주디거나 니사데 진진다고 진도 니 대지 생다 간이래 송 다티 니 대지 생다 로 메소나 가반로서 tasana tombo hicha yapochi kona tani ta gemba mir nga yore 이게 le labu ko gondu 더 야포치 더 마거나 이게 더 야포 고문디 배나 나로서 가가가가 마시나 이 이게 로가나 로지 메라 에 대한다 오래 더 야포치 더 돈보 이게 거니 야포치 더 힐고 야포치 히드 야포치 gon고 노는 마거나 배도 메레 노는 야포치 gon고 자자지지 뒤서 롱고 뒤서 요바지시 롱고 gona ronla kada yo pare ronla peche bore muni ronla chi seji ngaru chi jo ate na ronla peche yo pare mo gembala sikila peche mare ron deva ron chi bore ji ron do ngale ta ji peche hu muni ta peche de na peche koron dare siwa mumbu pa de dewan juji tina na foroso nga lekandi nga tiso mendi tiwandi tindila sono matompa tiso rong she gaware deme tiso la ngama pandoji mere tiwala ngama paji mere rong tiso she rong ko tondu she gaware deina tala ya puchi ta rocha.
So then to sum up, so it's really clear, these points of investigation, they are all connected to this first of 5 steps of insight meditation. This first step is based on the peaceful mind, the mind in stillness. And so, as Rinpoche said, first we need to establish at least some degree of stillness, of shamatha. In the way he describes, sit down, do the prayers, settle the mind, do the technique until the mind is calm, has some calmness, and then if we sum up all of those questions that have come in this session, they boil down to 3 things. We're looking to see that settled mind. First, how is it? Second, where does it come from? And third, where does it go when it's lost? How is it? What's its nature? Exist, not exist, colour, shape, all of those different things. How is it? One big question with many details. Where do those moments of mind come from? How do they come about? And then, when they're lost, where do they go? How do they go away? They're the 3 questions. And this is the basis for everything that follows. Just like the first letters of the alphabet are the basis for everything that follows, this is the ABC of insight meditation. It needs to be done really as well and as accurately and as diligently as you possibly can. Really and truly, it needs to be done like that. It needs to be really done, not bluffed, not done roughly. It needs to be done as best as one can, also as much as you can. And this shouldn't be a burden, like a meditation obligation, because by doing this, you are doing yourself the biggest favor you could ever do yourself, possibly. This is for your own liberation. This is for freedom from your own sufferings. This is really the key to amazing happiness. So, although often we think, I've got work to do, I don't have much time to practice, then this is something to do as well, as perfectly, and as much as you can. And then this will give us the real working basis for going on to the following points.
다 든지도 강도 되라나 생다 가리 우니 야보지 고롱 롱기 진리나 하고로 그래 생니나 고로 가리도니 히요 초나 가리도 조히요 뭐야 다 나도现在 가리도 시히요 야보지 하고제다라 데 랑통 시미도 가리다라 가리데 당강아로서 생니 가리 하고 히요 보면 가리도 조 가리도 조 이땅가 된 하고 말이 다 달라서 어느 또 드리세거나 치아받은 파바지 한 통만이 세지든 통고조래 달라능이 라바지 마통바지 통징이 라라 더리 들 가리리지나 나랑아로서 하고 말이 가리즈니도 가리즈시 히오 말이 땅아로서 맹어 따니 강강강강강 드리세고디나 타고 우니 가리요도 하고 노아리 되니 통만이 세지 통고아리 던 통제든 치아받은 파바지래도 말이 달라 라통 이미도 거리 다 우니 강다리 말어서 choje chimbo gong aki ta do tindi so so no to gong hiyo pare ta gong muni gong ma ta tere dime gong yo ma te tangi gong jeli si de yita yene ra wo dong ta ki zume khang go ta ki tingen zan ra tindi re yin da ji dime muni choje chimbo gong ma re ta gong ma muni gong tere de tindi ji yoro so ya bo ji ta ko cho.
When we do this practice, just now we have the instructions for doing it when the mind is in stillness. Then later on, in the following steps, we'll be examining the mind not only when it's still, but when that mind is active. We'll be examining the mind when the mind is filled with thought and emotion and so on. Step by step, that mind will come to know itself in all of those different situations. Not just in stillness, but when it's busy, when it's thinking, when it's in this state, that state. And there will be a profound insight into the mind and its own nature in all of those circumstances. This is what we're training to do. And this is why, if we come back to the beginning, this is why it's called vipassana. This is why it's called this, remember the first bit, the lak, is defined as something which is extraordinarily supreme, extraordinarily excellent. It's because the oral instructions of the lineage, such as we're just receiving for how to look into the mind, these, when we practice them and when we gain that insight, it gives us the sort of insight that can come no other way. And that most useful insight of all. So this is why it merits that name of extraordinarily superb insight, the very deepest insight. And this actually is Mahamudra, what these instructions lead to, the actual practice. This is the heart of Mahamudra. Mahamudra is nothing to do with just sitting down in some calm state, far away from thoughts. That's shamatha. That's the sort of shamatha that can lead to the formless realms and all of those eons of just absorption into a peaceful, non-thinking state. That's not Mahamudra. What Mahamudra really is this heart of it. It's this investigation which gives the mind true insight into itself. And Rinpoche says, please consider that carefully. So that's the end of the formal instruction and teaching for this morning, and Rinpoche invites your questions. Naranso di Chajo Chenpo ki kola mambo te son, mambo lok son, di naranso ki lapaki nang la tsi mambo yore. Pache di pugu chung chung yina, pugu chung chung la di tes le lagendo, di Chajo Chenpo ki tsik dang nam tok lapa la yomare, sem la yomare. Di pena digi na dribo mambo yore, yina yang lama di pache dribo digi lempa di Depking on a tone song, details noctra yori, general yori, courage, cooking.
Di Travata Diagon Yojata Lama Tanchi Kuari, Narogo Kuamari. I think the Dilana Travan Narogo Kuaji, Lama Kuajagana Narogo to Mary, Narona Pemba Mary, Narongo Yutari, the Travata, Carregina, Naroga Satuni, the Regas on Hamagona, Yang Kuacha, Ron Pamiri, Ron Pamena, then Ron Yamobala Pemba Mary, Sonjito Bala Pemba Mary, then a Gonchi Mary Ron. The Inditilana, the Goni, Rongo Noni Hakugari. Ron Yamena Sonji do the Katwa Sonji to Yonzu Yore. On a Chan Tanjego, or Trabato Katwa Tino like Yore, the Coronson Yonore, Coronson Loneri. The Lonetta, that in the Udin, I saw the Rongo Sono Tony, Ron Litino to Tagari. That the Bunny that wrong and yon, not the come up with Coagaro longer, Garo the Hebano Charo. Did you marry?
Everything, the question is about all the foreknowledge that we bring to this meditation through what we've heard, what we've studied, and so on. And in a way, it would be easier to come to this with a totally fresh mind without the knowledge of those things. So then, what to do about that? And Rinpoche said, as he said the other day, well, all of those things that we heard and that we can read, they were somebody else's experience. It was the Karmapa's experience. If it's the Karmapa who wrote the text, it was this master's experience or another. They had the experience through doing these exercises, and on the basis of that experience, then they wrote down in their songs, their poems, or their whatever it was, they wrote down what they found. It's of no benefit to us very much, because that's what they found when they did it. What we need to do is to see what we find when we do it. And then on the basis of that, our own actual experience of Mahamudra will develop. That will be authentic, that will be first-hand, and that's what we need to do. So we don't know the answers, We read the answers. What we need to do is to know the answers for ourselves. Our minds need to come to know the answers through their own experience. And just reading words and sounds and ideas from other people isn't knowing the answer. It's reading about the words they wrote, about the direct experience that they had. It's very different. The answer is not something we need to write down as a questionnaire. The answer is something our mind needs to know, and that we need to find.
Uni draw tegana, draw a land tegana, not temaring a dandy. Go you can't see na. Coron you are to take a caritina, draw a land take your body. Coron noni, nyono man catina, lama nyono chanchi, travachicona, draw a land temaring a dandy. Danny, Dino di Trava the Copa Mahipachi Travacona, signal Meji Cona, T. Coron, new activity land Diagaritini, new amena, Colan Lopa General, dog make it a When say na, Lama Nyono Chanchica Travacona, Loma Nyono, Travala Lea Poteri. Loma la Nyono mena, don't need Travala land him. Need Trava Moboco, Travaguni land take Matomaso. Coron uni, che contro di una lente di mato, temina, uni trava ni san, io trava cachi trego di tirana, tini, un gocono di, trava catwan leme di choro lore. Tandino ni ti cachi di malay o mare di, trava comara. Garo noto momboyore, noto momboyo di tira, trava damada momboco giore, then uni go on di tira, se la guaya poiona, tini, non ya poiona, trava la lente di temina. Actually,
when we look into this situation of these sort of questions and answers to them, then, if the Lama really does, if the teacher really has experience, has his own direct personal experience of these sort of things, then they're not going to, they'll only answer questions from somebody who has almost experience, who's ready for the answer, and where the answer that they're giving is relevant to the meditation experience that the person had up to that point. It's touching on some real experience and bringing it forward or awakening in it just that little bit. If the person who asked the question doesn't have the experience, doesn't have much experience, they're just asking an intellectual question, then if it's an really realized Lama, they won't bother to answer because they can't answer. The answer they give makes no sense, and then it's just all thoughts, and by the time you've dealt with 2 or 3 or 4 thoughts, everybody's mind's spinning, and it's of no benefit. And so it's something that really needs to be reached through actual experience. And what the teacher needs to do when somebody asks a question is just to give them a tiny little bit to work on themselves, so that by the mind's own experience, then the answer to the question comes up by itself, not from somebody's mouth outside, but from the mind's own inner realization.
Lama nyonyo chanchi la tsikti to ni lajena tini bo semare ki lamare. Nyonga ti do ni lama puna tsikti do ni ki ten ni lamare. Lama nyonyo chanchi tidra tsikti do tsamare tani twa ko mare. Tsikti do mobo ki gore pesa mobo ti gan penana naru para chinga jo penda tari tsikti do chingana ko len ndo ka tsonga la penda tari to rongsa penda ta chungshu mare. Ta sonji ji temba ga daika penda ta jacho mobo 동쪽 몸보요 빈 노니 퍼더쇼와 샤고송이 밴드다리 직디도 저건 렌제거나 리 라보 코나 쳐디오 바리 옛나용 동거디도 나 돈을 메바라 때니 라마 때 인센터리 라마 문이 녀녀 체질이나나 직디도 렌제나 때 튀니 보세마 까져러지리 된 거는 용와디도 니가도 니 저고 공하리 녀녀디도 니 렌제거 바리
when a master is an authentic one with true realization, then they would not be comfortable at all answering these deep questions about mind and how it is. And the reason for this is very clearly exemplified by Naropa's case. Naropa was a great Pandita, a very, very great master at a time when Buddha Dharma in India was at its zenith. It was flourishing. There were many, many great Panditas. He wasn't just another Pandita. He was at that time a star, a wonderful Pandita amongst many, many hundreds of great Panditas. He really knew the Buddha's teaching back to front. If even for somebody like him, if questions about the true nature of mind could have been answered by his own master using words, if anyone could have understood the words and the words would have made sense, it would have been him. But even for him, it couldn't be done. So this is why a master with realization, when receiving our questions on these things, and we're not Naropas, is not comfortable in giving an answer.
nga bola yo di tela na nima go pe kepa chimbo jore kembo masela pe zocha gang la pe kebare lobat kon loma jasho mo boyo bare gang chenge ko kan dara nga sonyi ko nga trawa kare ko de la di tela ta nyole ko nga kyuai hidi tela ko nga trawa chigi ti de ko mo nu kona tera ne re chawo re ne ri chawo ji ding so la du ya ta choro gen di re chawo de pena na gombi ka so lo gari zo ta to pa yo pare nyonyo gari da yo le se den zo ga ta ta di teme choro ga se gari da yo le si ga me go pa me se ngaro so ji ri ki zo den zo tra ko ma re te ni don ni tri ni tera re jin di re da ta choro gondi tera topa re de karezo ta kindi re dio re singa deri zo todi te deri tedi tirana ta chignola ti re de karere che go ji chignola me re deri de ma za choro karere se go de ni ge no yo ba zhe ma re nyong nyong qian go.
Rinpoche is remembering one master that he knew in Tibet who was a Nyingmapa master, a Khenpo, and a great master of Dzogchen. And so he had this discomfort in answering questions like that, and Rinpoche went to him with a question about the mind, and rather than answering that question in terms of the mind and saying, the mind is not born or it doesn't cease or anything like that, the teacher gave the air of not understanding at all what he was talking about, and he said, there was some cloth hanging on the wall, cloth hanging, and he asked Rinpoche he said, look at that cloth. When you meditate on that cloth, what's going on in your mind? How do you experience it when you meditate on it? Of course, there's nothing in the books about when you meditate on cloth, there is this or there's that. So what he did was not answer. Probably wasn't an intellectual question, it was probably a very sincere question, but nevertheless, rather than answering it in classical ways, what he wanted to do was to see the experience of Rinpoche and to talk about that direct experience, which is something real to do, not abstract. Yeah, Miriam.
Rinpoche, in the beginning of the Shinrin practice, the sessions are recommended to be very short and with rests and breaks in between.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a recommendation for how to structure the sessions if one is practicing Drupon meditation? And then also, could Rinpoche please give us some advice for the post-meditation in between the meditation sessions?
Di Drupon di dompo katsan di gongki tungi nangla, deni kama som shi nga to deni Rinpoche la shineki jang that's pengindo, the majang pengindo, then it pena the ringin house yena, then it tunkin on the karache gogundo, pena dampo sem nego gundo, then it nepeki sem latene, the drushu gogundo, the sem ta gogundo, tunkin on la karache, and kamas soon nagging on Georgie. Then the jetopla, Penan Tungi Tunmayena, then a lapsa Dijangna, lapsa Chepachen Yorebe. Pena the ringi, lapsa dropo, Jangna.
On tezo ji zwa yabong gusumdu zwa tezo himdu karere la di tira na san karen du ta ta kha thwa ta gang re ta tan re ni ta ta la ya kare la yin se di tira na lang tong to ji ta tal tian de lang to ha ko ko re la ra ta gang re ya tan ta xie ge re ta de ma te gang go ji me re ta
e drew up a shoe muscle, the pen Michigla Tunchi Chusuchi, you know, Chusuchi in la, then Shinege Kama Ngare Yore, then Kama Nagging on la, Pena Derindra Hoge, Tribushu, Kandra Chego Hondo. Pena tampo sem nego gundo, sem nepa mayempa dene ditets karikabo rewa, dene kama ngaging ang lat, tets kama sum la dene nego gundo. Teach me.
Oh, da. Tuzo de la dombo nipa yo gundo. Nipa ta kama jig ni tananda, ni ni tananda, kipa mandu sen dona dombo, or sen dan de song de jile di nipa ji. 그래 마소 받으라 다 까마가서 도도이나 또 롱고 따거래 되면 히르 타초면데 근데 니 차디 되라 다 손동 거지래 니 봐라 손동 거지 마도 되면데 또 내가 강래 니 봐도 용 희니래 어야 되니 희니다 가르시 히오르라나나 다 가롱소고 조미도 랑동 희지 그 동도 강래 다 랑동 원초거 바래 Lanton won't trogavala, Usutra sonomaton, Lanton Hakoji Yobamari. Tina, Pena, Tombo, Send the theatre Mindru Mazuna, Casongi Laya, Nidra Wojona Romohakum, the Ulare. Then the Calais and do one at the Romohakum, the Romoki, ni Taromokas and do say Catoma Yabotilapatic, Sandy she could do. The Rao, Ta Tombo. Kinita, San, Takamaki, Nitanina, Nitananda, Takarina, Nona San, the Kadi, Niwana, Tenin Nepalata Chundu, Tenin Nepata, Nepa Niuna, Nepitidon, the Ezo Dinandi, Gonja, Yon Nepa the Kani Leuta. Tenin has our own money, Nanda, near 100 Tila on Gonje, the Ezo on. Nipandosa Kawanuta. The new Nanda Mani Nanda won't tell the Gamji. The new theatre Canada won't Kalina Catanizina, on Maso, won't the consider she. The new Gamji, that is the Nisio. Sasa said, but here it Gorjamundi. Shasa said the Gamji.
So the first question is about the practicalities. Within the session we have the advice on shamatha that it's very beneficial to do it in short bursts of 4 or 5 minutes, something like that. Then how to apply today's advice for transforming that into vipassana. Well, the basis for this exercise of looking at the mind within stillness is, of course, the stillness itself. And there needs to be some degree of stillness before that mind looks at itself. And that just depends on each person. So in the practice session, let's say if it's an hour, then within that session we'll be doing 3, 4, 5 minutes each time. Then when, because of that, there is the stillness, then that stillness is, once it's there, it becomes the basis for the insight. And we really actually do need that stillness before we can come to ask these questions. There's no point asking these questions when the mind is still busy. They just become intellectual questions. So the example Rinpoche gave yesterday was, if your hand is moving, then you can't see the lines on it. First the hand has to be still, then you can see, oh yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines and how they are, the shape, where they go. So for this exercise, the mind does need to be peaceful and focused. So in whichever moments of the session the mind is peaceful and focused, then we go through this investigation, as was described today. And then, once we're used to that a little bit, as the mind is settling into peaceful concentration, then this is where we're asking, where's this coming from? How is this arising? Just observing how the mind is becoming peaceful, focused mind. How it is while it's remaining peaceful and focused, asking how is it, where is it, inside, outside, colour, shape, and so on. And then at the end, when that peacefulness goes, the peaceful mind is gone because of thoughts or the end of the session, how did it go? How did that peace go? Where did it go? That's how we'd ask it. And then quite how that works depends on each person's practice, how many moments, how many minutes of shamatha there are. But this is necessarily based in the shamatha. There needs to be that peaceful focus first.
You know, jito la, ta nyongko jinanda gong kasi yapo mena, jito le pekali kabore, jito la yapo cho masupanda bore. Tini nyongko yapo yona, tini jito la rungo yapo cho ngare chonyo. Tini na ta zoyo no zo jito jikasa la, ta tenki yapo se jito ka chi hinda bore da. Dime ta hire ta gongto mumbu yore te yana yung ta kachi mandi nyongyo yapo se kachi di tongpo. Tini jito la rungo yapo cho ngare nyongyo yapo yogona. Ta jito jikasa la yana yung ta tenki gong tata yapo tenji re.
As for the second question is there some advice for the in-between sessions, the post-meditation phase? And if the actual meditation session isn't very fruitful, if there is, then there's not much point talking about post-meditation, because post-meditation advice is mainly there to maintain and nurture the experience that's gained in the session. If in the session there is good experience, and so there's shamatha, and there's some possibility of making these questions, then in that case the most helpful thing between sessions is to remain as mindful as possible. It's the mindfulness that keeps the mind from going too far away from the practice.
Choro so here le yo ge uni toni san la ya bu song no tong do gong ji ru che. Me ti ge di do la pan tu xi ro me re mo bo ko cha ba re cha chong mo bo ko cha ba re mu ge che to cha re ngo zhu te xie cha re da da u su no mo de la jin da wo re ka chong mo bo ko cha re lian yong mo bo ho le la re den di da wo re mu ni mo bo ko cha ba re ti nga ro so pan tu ja che bo ti xi yo ba ma re ya bo pan tu xi yo ba ma re去了娘来些些记得去了研究些些你有的去了研究些呢过了嘎里拉的今天意思是得起才能的有吧的了去了研究些些吧的去了娘来些些记得过了呢喇叭大的光节得了娘娘在等你大人个说人们的三个地头你娘来叫等你些得了去了娘来些些的等你娘来些些记得去了研究些你看看的 Tini usu tini dawoji cho ore ta san tini dawoji se ta so ta san tini yoli re si tini si ka to ha ko ki je je chula hinju se le de me chula nyole se le mare muni ga ya po je chen ki kari se ge de na pe na tiri mi pa dawoji dong bo te de lo ma la gam je tini zba ko la mi ta ko ni su ko ma di tini ko tsare tini mi pa de te tini de gam je tini zba ko tini te ya po shong wa na tini mi pa samba de tini zba ko ko ndu su ko ma di da tini se de gam che yo bare gam che tini usu dance rawo do pe shan ra yong che di la ta tini se hi me re ko ro nyama la ngaro su ta che tong rawo zo chen ro yo bare gam che se di la muni gam che di la mi pa re te de gam che tini se ti do kwa yo wo di la tini ni pa de che tini se yo bare gam che tong tini re te Roma la tiso yo mare, la mala tiso yo mare. Tiso ka so anda bare. Roma yo nga chi khom de tewa yo nga pe ga me nga le ka le ga kare se pe yo da mo bala jo bare. Se chama la tan ka se pe ka ko bore. Ho la ma ye teri aral rogo soni fare san rogo noni. Jaklan rogo se teri se la mala tiso yo ki me. Te de ka so ha pa ti je no jo bare. Teri je de la Roma la tiso me bala de corona pe to ke mare la me go pe se ra pe de me te nga ro ka to te go re pa to go se chi kha ko mere
Oh dear. Well, there's a big difference between Dharma as research and Dharma as practice. Or we say study, but the word that Rinpoche uses means research. So a lot of what we do with Dharma, it's idea-based. In other words, we're looking into something, we're investigating ideas, learning about them, sorting them out, straightening them out. And Dharma research, in its widest sense, where we are exploring the world of Dharma and its ideas, is one thing. Dharma actual practice is something else. It's not ideas-based, it's practice-based. Now, were there the time? Were there the time? Then, the way that these particular instructions work is like this. The sort of meditation instruction we get today is given to the student. They do their damnedest to practice it. They give it their everything, and they try and get the instructions clear. They practice it very, very well. They forget all of the research Dharma. They're not going off looking into books in between meditation sessions. Preoccupation is to do this. And then, along with today's instructions, there are, from the teacher's point of view, a series of questions to be asked. And the student would come to the teacher, probably on a one-to-one basis, or if there was time, maybe it could be done with a group. And that first question is asked. And then the student has to go away and investigate on the basis of that. And when the answer to that's found, then you go on to question 2, and question 3, and question 4. All of these questions to do with this first section on examining the mind in stillness. But then, as Rinpoche says, these days, look how it is. Lamas fly in, they've got a couple of days, then they've got another place to go to. They're off to America, they're off to India. The students come here for the course. They've got to go away, they've got to earn a living, got to do this, lots of stuff to do. So we come together for a short while, there's a brief exchange, and then, so this is why at the end,
오늘 들으셔도되라 초롱소고 기차시 강거래 되면 편도 제로 메리 배나 니 드고노라 쇼션 다바선을 트이 다바선을 트디티라는 니리 미파리리 헤디티라 니마 니리 서리라 강 되니 코로 콘디소 코모디 되니 고메나 느리시 강걸리리세도 드니세 갈리자이 When Naruto gone Jedi Telana, Leka Kong Mere. So bad so can you need to know the Leka Mepa Sherry Katsua. Could gone Chong Ba, Sony Shoke Cheso San, the Sydney Yano, the Della, Gona Mani, the Cheso Kiba, the Nipalana. Some of Chivo don't go Jerry. Leka Kong Mepa Sherry Tendizo. Really la mi pa sono ton. Really la tobacco. Tani tobacco ti sego na ko tin sa mo bosa on pa ju on go on chu on ngara ne tamere ko ka do na nga sa tobacco on ki pa ro sa on ki chu le on tobacco on nga pa zhe chu zhe on pa ro ko go on sono ton on mo ki ti sego da ba sa na nga chere zong xie de ka zong uni ka chi bo yin ba la dian Tinola Traka yung yore, Khenpo yung yore, Mon Chad, Hida, Tasada Hedori, Him Hedori. They love Monday. Uni that Tinisia on the Tilla. Casonga Laya, Tinoni, Lamakigo, Kogonji, Uni, Soa Carita, Yama Mobola, Co, Dusak Him and the Machodo, Comba Here Mars, the Tenizo Calijado, Gonjaso. Tenisian at the Tinuni. Gangcho Tong, Tanguni, Tandri, Sonzi, Swatch Tandu. Tomato, Muni, Lil, Labo. I also hear what you marry. Machu Pacho, Taco, Maba, Lobo, Chico, Tiga, Josa, Tindil Abuji, Mudi.
It's not easy. It's not easy by any means, because Rinpoche says when in the retreat house in Nepal, then there they do these insight meditation, Mahamudra, for 3 months non-stop. In those 3 months, for each of the exercises based upon a particular question, some very precise point to investigate, then there are 2 or 3 days for each point. The people in the retreat are mainly Tulkus and Khenpos. Nearly all of them before have done the full Shedra training, so their knowledge of Dharma and they're very experienced people. They meditate from 3 in the morning till 10 in the evening. They have nothing else to do but that. So when they have this one question, that means that all day long they are, from a basis of, if it's today from shamatha, their mind is there, and it's being aware and aware and aware and aware to get the answer to that question on the spot in true reality. And he says, even when it's like that, it's not easy. He's all day long during those 3 months seeing people on a one-to-one basis. They come to him, they have their questions, their doubts. Sometimes they can't get it. He gives them another thing to do, another aspect that helps them with that question. They go back, they sit and they sit and they sit, and then they come back, and then you take it on from there. So he says it really is not easy. That's how it ought to be done, and even then it doesn't just flow smoothly and happen brilliantly. It's a lot of hard work. He said they're so diligent. It's marvelous the diligence they put into it. But then those who in the end get the big benefit or not, it varies. So he says, it's so easy, he can sit down and say, beyond complication, and just settle the mind in its own nature. It will be so easy. But he said, really and truly, between us, the real Mahamudra is difficult. Just one more, yeah.
Some subtle moment, I feel, I'm not sort of understanding. You step on the line, feel it a bit high, a bit focused. You want to pose the question.
Yes.
So you sort of shout in your mind, where are you? It's that sort of what goes on at that point, that the little disturbance too much. Raise the question.
Yeah, he never said shout, but no. the when a lamtongi tajun dindrabo when ne talk to then it's ta ne to ta then it dampo shine tes gugundo sam shiwa then sit nepa and dilatene driwo shu mane ke driwo shuju Gandra door muchela pen sem shivala nepa yena then driwa shu pachen namto draborewa
karidi
pen sem ganejong sem kabadro Gandra door the range semgi nang driwa shu yare pachen namto drabo
trwa
driwa shu then driwa shu dans shine mashoba ke jedula karche ko kunde
hini hyo so na ni pa mundu hini hyo so na ni pa meji gi jinsa karire dina 랑 또 거 히오레 랑 거나 티 우시디 뉴드지도 니도 template 데디오레 셰니 요메 좀문데 티티라나 랑 또 거디오레 티니 켄니 메나 제바문데 뭐야 드니 나도 요레 나도 요데니나 가로서 나도 가링도 따거리 나도 하마고지 바다 드니 따거리 니 하고 차도 될 되는 지딘데
진짜 말해요 자 디 드리버랑 남토래와
드리버
슈드 디 남토래 컨트라터 데 카파종 데 semge는 다 찍더라고요
야야 다들 손이 노니랑 라고도 안도나 다들이 그 가리라나 tất nó tu gì mấy tất nó tu mấy phải chỉ gọi yêu mấy khi ni nó tu mấy phải khi ni chỉ cái gọi yêu tất cả số như là cái rồi ngã cái nó lẹ cũng được mà chỉ mà cái cũng được đôi khi na thì nó tu yêu thì khi ni cái nó không mà không mình được tất là sao nó tu đôi khi đó long tu gọi khi ta hiểu được thì nên khi ni mình là mà chọn đấy.
So these are very hard things to explain in words, and especially when there's a translation as well on top of it. So I'll augment Rinpoche's answer to make it more useful to you. First of all, the actual way of asking the question isn't out loud, and it's not like asking yourself a question sitting down thinking about something. And it's probably one of the reasons why at the beginning he said, get these instructions very crystal clear before you do the meditation, so you know what you're doing when you sit down. So then, when you sit down to do the practice, first there needs to be some stillness and some shamatha. Then that mind which is still is becoming aware of, where's this coming from? It's not sitting there suddenly making a loud noise saying, where am I coming from? It's just quietly aware of where's this coming from, because we've understood what we're looking for very clearly before the practice. You could say, if you were sort of nitpicking about the shamatha, well, by the very fact of doing something would disturb the peacefulness. And it's true, we've lost the shamatha, that's good, we've upgraded it to vipassana. By this looking into the mind that is at peace, then it can, once one's accustomed to doing it, then it doesn't need to rock the peacefulness. That awareness of how it is, where's it going, where's it coming from, can happen. And it should happen because it's meant to be based on the peacefulness. You can't do it unless the peacefulness is there. But then this looking at the mind which is asking the questions, this is coming tomorrow now, or the next day.
야포니 뒤져이 하고 매래 도노 문이시나 배나 가 뭐시 도포요래 문이시나 뭐 뒤져이 야포니 하고 매래 다다 뭐 두보래 거서 야포래 그 따가 말이 던져버리 니바도 당하로서 동부 니바도 따라라다 드니 니바도 패도 가리니 니바 문이 가리니 코로나서 또 써놓 맞도나 다 니바도 야포니 데데나 문이 뒤져이네 지시라 드니나 니바도 야포래 뒤져래 가리니 니바도 찌리지니 됐다 하고도 되라나 드니 패도 체시더래도야 니마 괜히 거니 데데지 가리니 지시라 뭐 뒤져이 뭐 야포니 조포지원의 패면도야 티나니 니바다 야포레 뒤져래 가리래 그 됐다리 레니야 니시나 갖고서
하고 나서
기니 세니 봐라
네.
니바도 가리는 뒤다리 말이다 들이 따지다 놓치드나 니바도 진리신 뒤다디야 니바도 뭐세 야포인지래 뭐세 두포인지라 갖고 말아 배나 가라 뭐시 두포요래 기니라고 그래 뭐도 야포니 두포이 인가 잡으래 두포이나 지망하라 뒤져래래 야포이나 나라 야포래래 들어고 기니 니 되지 세야다 문이시나 야포니 두포이 참여래 배나 주메지 칸라 세 띵년자 까바모 반디지요래 티 패도 메렌 다 냐발을 문디요래 근데 기니나 기바 메래 야포니 두포이 기바 메래 근데 니 되지다 고 야포래 가서 두포래 거 가리라고 인도 있다 근데 야 되면 마디나 고로사 이 대대대지 배도미라 고소
This also is helping us to understand the nature of shamatha itself, whether it's just where it sits in the scheme of things, whether it's beneficial, whether it's good, whether it's no good. Not good or no good in terms of its quality, whether it's helpful for us or not helpful for us. Just as in the analogy we had earlier on in the teaching, where before you befriend somebody, you need to know, is this a good person, trustworthy person, someone who's going to be nice to know and helpful to know, or not. And as Rinpoche explained, shamatha itself, just all by itself, where can it lead? Well, it can lead us to these formless realms, it can lead us to a whole incredibly long experience and absorption. So it's also very useful, the fact that within that shamatha, then the mind is coming to really know what it is. Exactly, on the spot investigation of just what is going on here. How is it coming? What is it? What exactly is happening with this peaceful mind? And just like you'd like to... So then it becomes a friend for the practice, because we know really what we are dealing with.
Bye.